Welcome to episode 2 of Boss by Bronte. Today I am joined by Lillie Gilliam, who is a long-term friend, industry contact, socials boss student, and successful social media manager. Welcome, Lillie.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. So today we are discussing, and this is part of why I got you on, the different roles that you can sort of have in the social media space. Managing difficult clients, because I know you have definitely had a few, and setting up a powerful business through systems and processes. So if we can kick off with you just kind of giving us a little bit of an overview of who you are and what you do at the moment, that would be amazing.
Cool. Yeah. So I guess at the moment, hang on. Who am I? I'm Lillie. Oh my God. I knew this was going to be the hardest question.
You're doing great, sweetie.
It's like such imposter syndrome talking about myself, I feel.
No.
I don't know why.
That is crazy because there's a very specific reason I got you on. Like all the things I just mentioned, I feel like you've got such a cool history and journey into getting to where you are today. So I can't believe you feel imposter syndrome being here.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I guess just when you are in it, you don't feel like that. And I'm just like, why? I don't even know what I'm doing. But at the moment, I would call myself a organic growth specialist.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know. It's so weird. You can literally just call yourself whatever you want when you work yourself.
I mean, it makes sense though. You are technically, but I like giving it like a spicy name.
I know. It's like self-appointed, but like you could be self-appointed anything when
100%.
you're working for yourself. So strange I landed on that, but I think it just is a great summary of what I am passionate about, and that is helping businesses grow through organic marketing strategies. So I like to look at a business holistically and how we can help them grow through multiple different strategies, including socials, of course, organically. But that's the main gist of it. Is I don't touch paid or anything like that. So it would be all organic first, and I know you're the same.
Yeah. I love the organic space. I think there's just so much to do with it. It's like so much fun. Yeah, building audiences in that way. That's amazing. I like the title because I also think it like focuses on the outcome of partnering with you, not just what you do with them day to day, which like management sort of summarizes. So that is amazing. I want you to deep dive into a little bit more about your business at the moment. So like maybe just give us an overview of the types of clients that you work with. I think you're at capacity at the moment, aren't you?
I do ebb and flow. Like at the moment, I have a small amount of clients that I work with very closely, and through them, I will help them with multiple different areas of their marketing. So yes, a large part of my business is social media, but because of my previous experience and because I'm working with majority small businesses, I am able to slot in there and help in multiple different ways, which I love. And so help them through that. I mean, for example, at the moment, I have a client who's just opened her very first shop, and we're kind of going through the motions of her customer journey right now. So from discovering her on social media to then how we're going to actually get them on in store or online to order. So things like that I get to work with, which I love. And then, so that's kind of what I do right now.
Yeah, working with really varied. I honestly think that is a really, really good way to be set up, where you've got your base recurring clients and then you have project work that you do with them that might be like extra things, like looking at their emails or looking at like other opportunities, or other clients that come to you for little projects. But overall, you've just got your base, like consistent clients that you work with long term. Is that kind of the setup that you have?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I kind of ebb and flow in capacity, because I do just keep that small client base. And then, so at the moment, I also have a project-based client that's honestly just for 1 month. So just being able to look at things in capacities that way and say, can I actually work a little bit harder for this month and work with this really cool project? So yeah,
which I love, because I think it also, with every client that you've got, it means that their lifetime value with you is so much more. Like if you get a client that's $1,000 a month for management, it's not just that $1,000. It's like, every time they have a new launch or a new campaign, or they want you to like look at their emails or whatever, there's so much more there. So it's like, it's just the value in keeping your clients happy and keeping them loyal to you is just so, so valuable.
Oh, I agree. And I kind of really wanted to stick with that from the start. I remember having a conversation with you and just saying, I want space in my retainer to offer more. And you're kind of like, what? But I'm just grateful that I've done that, because now I have had a lot of clients for a year or nearly a year, and I've only been freelancing for over a year, just over a year. And I, through holding that space for those clients from the beginning and also communicating that, like saying, I want to grow with you, I want to grow with your business, then now I work for a couple of different hospitality businesses, and one of them has opened a brand new venue and kept me on, and then my workload has increased through that, and then therefore my retainer price. And also one of them is growing and developing their services, and again, my responsibilities are growing through that business too, and I've just communicated from the beginning that that's what I want. Yeah. And I just hope that it continues.
Amazing. No, and I think it's so exciting to grow with the business, like you said as well, like watching them grow, watching like the impact of what you're doing with the brand as well, like seeing that sort of flourish and like being able to partner with business owners in that way is amazing. So no, I think that's a really, really cool way to approach it. I know with what you're doing at the moment as well, and actually if we kind of go back to sort of where you started in the space, because I know you just said like your experience in the space has allowed you to offer like a few other areas for clients outside of just organic.
Yeah.
Do you want to run us through that? Because I know that you've worked in-house, you've worked with agencies, you've freelanced, and you offer, or you have offered white label in the past at least. Talk us through a bit of that experience, and then I'd love to kind of deep dive into each of those and see like what you found with each of those structures.
Totally. So I started working in-house for a destination marketing organisation here on the Sunshine Coast, and that was really fun. But I started as a social media coordinator there, and I started in 2019 or early 2020. It might have been early 2020. And that was, so January 2020, and then March is when the world shut down, 2020.
Wait, was that your first role in marketing?
Before that, I was just working for a small family business in Melbourne, and I would just go in on my shift. This is like such a tangent, but I was just working retail, and I would go in on my shift and take photos of the shoes. It was a shoe shop, and send them to the owner, and they would post them on. So I was like a self-appointed content queen then.
That is good. I actually didn't know that. Like before we started this episode, you were like, oh, you know most of this. Like, I didn't know that was when you started. I thought you'd been doing it so much longer than that. So it's epic.
Yeah. So it was crazy. But at that time, like I guess when the only experience that I had was just that random shoe shop experience, which I loved as well. Everything, I'm just going to say, I loved that. But I truly did. Everything has come to a point where it is now, which is just, I'm so grateful for everything. But anyway, so from that random experience, I didn't realize that social media could be a job, because I think at the time, like I was kind of looking around, I was like, this is kind of cool, but I was honestly just working in retail. And then I was completing uni as well. So I did fashion and textiles merchandising at uni. And a lot of social media roles were wrapped into admin roles or personal assistant roles and things like that. So I didn't realize that actually being a social media coordinator was a thing. And this was, 2018, so not that long ago. People were, I think, just expecting their receptionist to be able to do a bit of social media. Then, so I was studying and working in Melbourne, and I just moved back home because I love the lifestyle here. And this role came up, and I was just like, okay, I'll apply. I literally got told, because I was so nervous, and I hate interviews, and I really honestly didn't know that much about what I was doing. Like, I'd studied marketing at uni, but like any uni degree, you don't really get the experience until you're working in the role, I feel. And then they asked me how soon I could start, and I said, well, I brought my lunch with me today. And that literally made them all laugh. And they told me, I stayed there for 2.5 years, and they told me that was why I got hired.
I would hire you off that. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Confidence.
Literally. But I was like sitting there shaking, like asking for a glass of water. And then I just randomly said that, and they were like, she's it.
That is so, like, you do have to be funny to work in socials. So
yeah, I guess so that's how I got that role. But working there in tourism during a pandemic was hectic. And having to regroup as a marketing team in-house and actually pivot who our target audience was, because previously to that, like, no one had experienced a pandemic. And also, as a destination, we were marketing to interstate and international customers, and we weren't able to do that anymore. So I know a lot of businesses either thrived or didn't thrive during COVID, but tourism as an industry actually got flipped on its head. And we had to pivot the whole marketing strategy. And being part of that was really cool, especially so early into the piece. And it ended up that our whole marketing strategy was social focused, and that was me. So yeah, for at least 12 months, I was the main point of contact with the like higher ups in the business, telling them, you know, with community engagement, what people are saying. It was very, you know, not good, to be honest, from like a community perspective, but then how we were reactive, I thought was really good. But yeah, so that is how I got into it. But within that business, it's a bigger organization, and each person in the marketing team had their really defined roles, and also everyone was a lot more established than me. And because I was only new into the industry, and I was really, really enjoying marketing as a whole, and having seen like $200,000 campaigns from start to finish, I was like, am I just the social media piece in this? Like, how much was my impact? Mm-hmm. So I wanted to challenge myself and see how good I was at marketing in general and not just social media. So I went and got a role for a real estate agency, being their one-woman marketing team. And that involved blogs, it involved website updates, email marketing, PR, you know, everything really, out of home, all that. And yeah, I ended up growing their presence by a fair bit in the 12 months that I worked there. And I was like, okay, I'm good. Like, I'm actually good at what I do. And I just needed that confidence, I think, and the knowledge that I can do more than just socials, which amazing. I mean, we love socials obviously, but for me it was like, yeah, I don't know, I just wanted to know if I was good at anything else.
Totally. No, I think that's so fair. And I think that when you do start to get into the space, you realize how interconnected all of the tactics are in connecting with a new audience and nurturing that audience and getting to build trust and everything else. So I definitely think that as a social media manager, just starting out with being able to consistently post strategic content is great. Then you might want to build into content creation and being good with that side of things. Then maybe like the design elements, and then building on that. And that's like one of the parts I love about it, because there is so much that you can grow into.
Totally.
So many areas that you can understand. And the base of all of them is the social media strategy, because like
absolutely,
that covers like the audience, the messaging, like who they are, like what they're trying to achieve. So by understanding that as the core of the business, it does actually make it really easy to like start to build on other skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just having like that wider understanding of how all the different parts of a business's marketing should work. I also know what my strengths are, what my weaknesses are. Like, and now being a freelancer, I can say I'm going to subcontract this work to a graphic designer, because like she can do it so much better than me, deliver it to me, and then I can do what I'm good at. And that's what I learned doing the role by myself. I was like, wow, I'm really shit at this. Like Canva or nothing.
Yeah.
And even to this day, like I've tried to dabble a few times, but then if I just send it across to a graphic designer, I'm like, oh my God, why did I even spend 2 hours doing that? So that, and like website updates, I mean, I can do it, but if you've got a web developer, I mean, with my client, I was saying, who's just opened her new shop, she's got a web developer, and I'm like, I need these updates, please, blah, blah, blah.
Totally.
Like, just lean on the people that have that expertise.
100%. And I think that's the thing with it, is like, as much as we're saying you definitely can, you know, explore all these different skill sets and build up your skills and offerings, there is no pressure to do that. Like that is the options there, and it's encouraged because it's amazing and it gives you so many more opportunities with individual brands, but like across the board.
Yeah.
But you don't need to do that. Yeah. And I think like what I always advise students when they're looking at it, I'm like, make it an intentional decision. Like if you only do organic right now and people are asking you for paid, don't just be like, oh, I guess I'll do paid because like everyone wants me to. Make it a decision that you're like, right, I'm going to learn paid. Invest time in learning paid. Invest time in testing it. Tell your clients that you'll do a really cheap package for the first 3 months while you're figuring it out. Be super upfront that it's a new service for you.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that, you can actually offer it. So it's like, make it an actual decision of like, what do you enjoy doing and what do you not enjoy doing? And if you don't enjoy doing it and you don't want to learn, that's fine. Hands up, like step back and let someone else.
Literally, I know. And it's just like, I think people are scared. And I definitely was at the beginning too, to say, I don't know how to do this, but I will figure it out for you. Or saying, I'm going to subcontract this work for you. Either way, I think a client's happy. Whether you say, look, I've never done this before, but I want to try and do it for you. So I'm going to discount this, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, it's still my time. But also, I've had the same experience. If I say, look, I've actually sent this off to a graphic designer to get polished up, they'd be like, wow, sweet, thank you.
Yeah.
I think either way, I think I was definitely scared to admit that I wasn't doing all of the work. But I think also a client will appreciate that you're trying to find the right people for the job as well.
Totally. As long as your contracts cover that you can hire third parties and that you have contracts with the contractors you're sending it to.
Yep.
Like legally it's all covered with like confidentiality and everything else.
Yep.
It is totally fine to do that. And I was the same. I was really scared when I first started for people to know that. But it's like they expect it.
Yeah.
They know that you're doing it for like the best outcome for them. And like as long as it's something that you're managing, you're handling and the outcome's positive for them, there's no reason why they would be concerned about it. It's just also for you making sure it fits in with your package and your offering and that you can deliver on it still.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. So from there, it was after that job that you decided to start freelancing, wasn't it?
Yeah. So from there, I was just, it's so funny. Like when I was working in-house, I was so good at like updating my socials, updating my LinkedIn, like blah, 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 making sure my resume was up to date. And because I was actually doing that, I was posting on LinkedIn really often, which is so funny because I never do now. Then I got quite a few inquiries, not asking me for work, but just saying like, oh, how did you do this? Like from business owners. And then eventually the question started coming, oh, do you know any freelancers? And once or twice I did pass on other girls' details, of course. But then I was just like, why can't I do it? And at the time I was working a 9-day fortnight, which is so ideal. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take on clients on my 9th day. And yeah, I think, I don't know what it was, whether it's like manifestation or something, but every single time I've put something out there, it does come back, whether it's straight away or eventually. But I was like, okay, I'm going to start doing this freelancing thing on that day that I have free. And then I got 3 clients pretty easily. I think it's just telling people that you're going to do it. Yeah. And just making sure, like in every conversation, I'm taking on clients. Like people always like, first thing my friends do when, well, not the first thing, but when my friends and I catch up, we always ask each other about work. And then I would just say, yep, I'm taking on clients on the side, like just making sure everyone in my circle knew. My first 3 clients I got through just that word of mouth.
Totally.
And then eventually it started growing. I reached out to my industry contacts, including you and a couple of other agency owners I knew on the Sunshine Coast. And I just said, hey, I'm taking on clients now, and what does that look like? Trying to get as much advice as I could. And then from there, I got referrals. And before I knew it, I was like working so much because I still had that full-time job. And it just got to a point where I was like, I just want to give this a go. So I did.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
And I love that you've mentioned that it's like, it's your initial clients were heavily aligned with aligning your personal brand with social media, because this is something that I coach on so often. It's like, that is almost step 1. You can do all the marketing tactics and everything else, but your biggest strength and power is people thinking of you and immediately thinking of, oh yeah, they're a social media manager. Yeah. And the referrals just flow from there. So I love that was kind of where you got your initial clients from. So tell us about the moment then that you decided to like actually take the plunge. Like, do you remember when it was that you were like, okay, I'm literally going to submit my like, what's it called? Resignation. Yeah.
Oh my God. I feel like resigning from a job is the most awkward thing. Like you got to pump yourself up all day and you're like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I swear I can't exactly remember, but I feel like my boss wasn't there that day, but I had decided I was resigning that day. So I think I was in a meeting with the other managers of the business, and I just said, I've got something to tell you. I'm resigning. I can't wait for the boss to come back. I've got to do it today. And yeah, like just the most awkward thing, but everyone's always so happy for you, I think. Well, I hope.
I was going to say, being seen that I was been a boss on the other side of that conversation, it's just as awkward for them.
Yeah, totally. I don't know if everyone's always happy for you, but I don't know. It was a positive conversation. And then, before that moment, I don't know, if it was a bad day or just being overworked and wanting a time off. I think something that played into it heavily for me is that my boyfriend does FIFO work, and I was working full time, and when he would come home, we would never see each other because I'd be working, and then, things happen. And so I thought in my head, because at the moment I'm working a full-time job and doing freelance work, when I go full-time freelance, I'll have more spare time.
Oh, sweetie.
That went straight out the window, literally day one.
Yeah.
But I think that was my mentality. And yes, like that's a complete lie. But at the time, that's what I thought because I was doing that double workload.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. So you were freelancing. So at this stage, you've worked in-house, you've worked for an agency, you've started freelancing, and I know you went on to do some white label work as well. So do you want to talk us through a little bit of that? And then I just would love to hear a bit of the difference between those roles as well.
Totally. So actually did not know what white labeling was before I started actually doing it, which is so funny. But it's so common, and so many people that I know actually do dabble in it because it's so convenient. So white labeling, you can white label any service or product, and how I did it back in the day was with an agency. They wanted to white label my services. So essentially I was doing their client work and they were just saying it was underneath their agency umbrella.
It's super easy to explain that actually is like what we were saying before about you outsourcing to a graphic designer.
Totally.
They're offering white label services to you. So your client only knows that you're delivering this package, but like behind you, there's some people white labeling services so that you can deliver that package. It's essentially like it all sits under that main brand, no matter who's doing the work behind it.
Exactly. So, but actually the term white label, I was like, what the heck is that? So, that was really fun. And I think that's so beneficial for anyone who wants to work 100% remotely, because at that time that I was doing it, all of the content got provided to me, plus a client brief and tone of voice and everything, deliverables. And it was just basically like tick a box list. And then I would deliver the content schedule by the time requested, and then happy days. I didn't have to do any client work, any client facing communications. I just purely delivered that service. And that would be exact same as what you were saying before if I was to hire any subcontractors or anything like that. So that I think it's awesome. And if I was going to do like a big trip around Australia or wanting to work overseas or something, I would probably source more of that work, to be honest, because I think it's so flexible. But then on the other side of that, actually working within an agency is where you then are responsible for client communications and timelines, making sure that everything is running smoothly with an account. I mean, from my experience of being an account manager, I am the sole responsible person for that client and their deliverables for the month. So I'm just working with other people who work in the agency to make sure everything gets delivered and on time.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
So all those different experiences, because you're right, they all have slightly different like responsibilities, even though you're doing like social media across all of them and it sort of looks like the exact same thing.
Yeah.
They are very different sort of structures with it, whether you're in-house agency, freelance, white label.
Yeah. And I guess the only difference between then freelancing and working for an agency is like, quite frankly, the pay, because I do freelance work and also agency work, and my freelance clients, obviously the retainer price goes directly to me, which is beautiful. And then with the agency, I get paid a certain like wage, which is so fine. It just depends and with that I have more security and, you know.
Totally. You're not like feeling like you have to hustle for every dollar.
Yeah.
But then it does also have a cap. And this is what I really liked when I went into working for myself. Because I was essentially the same. I was working in an agency initially. But what I loved was that I was like, every second of work that I put into this is directly benefiting me and my brand and my growth. And it's like, it's going to benefit me for years and years in the future. So working till late night, while in the early days it's kind of essential, like it's some of the things that you can't really avoid. I was so happy to do that because I was like, it doesn't matter, like this is setting me up for years. Whereas if you're doing that working for someone else and you're working late, it's like, it's frustrating and annoying because you're like, this is just benefiting someone else and making them look good. Yeah, so I mean, they all have benefits and they all have different skill sets, as I've said, but I do, like, are you feeling like being in the freelance space is definitely you for now? Like, you're loving this sort of side of things?
Yeah, the mix between things I have at the moment is just perfect for me. Honestly, I really, really enjoy it. And as I was saying earlier, like, it does give me the flexibility to be able to ebb and flow in capacity. And like, whether I take on more, you know, one day if I take on more contract work through agency or through another freelance client, I don't know, or I don't know what's next. But at the moment, yeah, it's really working.
Totally. And I think one of the things that I love about it as well, and I talk about this on my socials sometimes, is like the freedom that you get from being set up in that way. Because like a lot of the things, like say in October, you were going away for a couple of weeks, you would just take on less project work. You could set up all of your client work to mostly run by itself.
Totally.
And then you just might be doing like a few minutes a day, checking in on clients, making sure things are going live. But you can literally do that without it necessarily being like time off work or like putting on an out of office. You just can kind of structure your month in a way that gives you freedom in whatever way you need it.
Yeah, it's so good.
I know, I love. So when you started out as well, and so we touched on it earlier, we actually met up when you were really early days in launching your brand. I think you'd put together a business and you kind of got the semi-structure there. You had the experience behind you. You had some clients that you were working with and you kind of came to me and were like, help. It's like a lot happening.
Yeah.
And one of the first things we did was go through your client list and navigated a few kind of difficult clients. So can you give us some insight into those? Because I know a lot of the people listening are either probably experiencing some difficult clients or at least will in the future. So how did you navigate that, and any sort of takeaways that might help them?
Yeah, honestly, in the first 3 months that I started freelancing, I broke up with 3 clients.
So hectic.
So hectic, and all for different reasons. The first one, so what actually made me take the leap as well out of full-time work was I had been in negotiations with a client for a long time about starting to do freelance work for them, and they offered me more money. Well, actually, I pitched to them to pay me more money than I'd ever been paid before.
Love that.
And still to this day, more money than I've ever been paid per month. But it was running like heaps of accounts. They are a massive group and they're growing. And they're awesome. Like, I love, you know, being in their venues and I love seeing what they're doing. But the negotiation period took so long, and then it was finally over the line and I was quitting my job, and I was like, oh my God, these people are going to pay me so much money and the work's going to be so good because I know I'm good at it, like all this thing. And then I did an induction with them, and 2 days in, I realized that they were treating me more as an in-house employee, and that is 100% what they needed. They needed an in-house employee for that role, and that's, to their credit, what they actually wanted in the beginning. And I convinced them to hire me as a freelancer, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so amazing. This is so good. And they were right. They needed an in-house employee, and I had to make the decision whether I wanted to stay with this client who was maxed me out at capacity, over capacity from the very beginning, because I also was still hell-bent on taking on more clients on the side of that, because I was like, no, I'm a freelancer. I want to have multiple clients and I want to do all these different things. And so, yeah, I had felt like I had wasted their time and their resources sort of training me up, but they fully inducted me in-house, and I would have loved it. It would have been an amazing in-house role, but it wasn't aligned with what I wanted to do at the time. So I had to call them and say, I'm sorry, I can't continue working for you. And that was a massive loss of income and confidence.
Yeah, wasn't that scary though? Because if you've just quit your job and it was purely almost based on having this client secured, like how did you, I don't know, process that and being like, okay, I'm down to like what, like basically $0 income?
Yeah, I was down to ground zero. I had like 2 clients on top of them. So, and then I had, fully quit my full-time job. I just was like, there is so much opportunity out there. And since I had started telling people I was going freelance, I had always had people messaging me and stuff. So I just thought, and it was actually, you said, because at this time I was doing coaching with you as well. And you said, look, I've got a client for you, but you're at capacity. You can't take on any more. And that to me was like the biggest, like, no, let me show you. I can take on more. But then having a client that really wanted me in-house, like even to the point of being there 2 to 3 days a week, like, no, it was not structured how I wanted to be working. And I was just like, no, I want to commit to small business marketing.
I love that. And I think that's so cool that a big driver behind cancelling that client was being super clear on the business that you wanted to build for yourself and what that looked and felt like every single day, and looking at something, even though money-wise might be amazing, but like this actually doesn't make me feel the way I want to feel every day. So it's so amazing. Yeah,
it was tough though. And like, I wouldn't want that to happen to anybody else. Like fully first 2 days being full-time freelance and having no income because you've just broken up with your biggest client. But
at least you were in control of it. Like you were the one who did it. And I actually fully remember, you're right, we were in coaching at the time when you went through this. And I remember you were like so stressed because you were like, how can I let them down? And this is still something that I go through with students when they like need to cancel a client. It's like, they are still your client. So you want to show up with respect. Like you said, you felt, bad to a degree, but you're also doing this for them. It was going to be better for them long term. And it's always about like, okay, how can I make this easier? Because it's got to happen. I am cancelling them. But knowing on their end what this is going to look and feel like, how can I make that better? So it was like, okay, if you get someone in-house, I can do a handover package. I'm happy to like do a week training them or like setting them up, giving them my strategy, like whatever you kind of need to process this. I'm happy to like get the word out that you need someone and help you like onboard them. Like all those little things I think keep that like professional relationship as well and show them that you do care and this wasn't just like a rash decision that you made.
Absolutely. And having like now 12 months later, I think having a really good offboarding process is really important because it's definitely not been the first and only client we've had to offboard, and that's totally fine and it's going to happen.
Totally. And what about the other 2 that you had to break up with? What was the sort of reasons behind those?
So the others, so that was a happy sad, that breakup with the big company. But a couple of others I've had to break up with in the beginning was, so Bronte, you and I have worked together on a few different clients, but this one's definitely a very memorable one.
Yeah, I know. And to be fair to me, I reached out to you. I said, few red flags. Solid red flags.
Few solid red flags. And that is a lesson. If there's red flags at the start, there's going to be red flags all the way through. And by red flags, I mean, I think so many clients do have red flags.
Totally. But it's whether you can train it out of them.
Exactly. They can be worked through. Or even maybe sometimes it's just like a little miscommunication or whatever it may be.
100%. And that's what I had faith in this for. I was like, look, bit of boundary overstepping, bit of like not following the processes, but we'll see if this is an ongoing issue.
Yeah, we'll see.
Just a little initial speed bump.
Yeah, a little initial speed bump. Turns out it was an ongoing issue.
It was a problem.
It was a problem. I didn't have the balls to break up with her. I just told them I was going back to a full-time job. See ya.
Lily?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. I thought you did.
No, with that particular client, it was more a personal thing.
Yeah, it was a very like emotionally driven situation. So I actually do like knowing the back end of it. I actually do understand that because I think easier for both of you to have that as like the reasoning.
And I think that is like, it's just human. Like Yes, I lied. Okay. I lied. I gaslit. I was wrong. But because that client was very emotional, I just knew that there would be something where it's like, oh, but we could work together like this, or oh, but we could still do this, and that had been the case throughout the whole client relationship. So I just wanted to give no excuse to not be able to, you know.
And being early days and like once you've done a few breakups, it does get a lot easier to just be very upfront and be like, these are the reasons. And I have always made it very like, these are the reasons that it doesn't actually work for you either. Like exactly like you did with your first client. It's like, it works better for you if we don't continue in this relationship, and here's why. And that's what I always focus on. But yeah, I definitely understand being early days, being like, what is the easiest and simplest way out of this?
Sometimes you just have to do what's best for you. And I think with the third client, it was a follow on from that and being like, no, red flag, see ya.
Yeah.
I'm not taking you on.
So since then, like, because that was like you said, first 3 months, you broke up with 3 clients. Yeah. So having gone through that experience, do you think now you're better at picking the clients that you're going to work with and you don't actually have to go through the process of breaking up with them? And like, what do you think it is that you now look for?
Absolutely. Now, for me, my business is really interconnected with my emotions. So funny because I'm just talking about an emotional client, but I think now I only take on really referrals from people I really trust, and also have a better screening process. And by that, I mean coffee or wine, but just more. And I'm so much more honest with clients. Like I think at the start, I tried to be very, because I feel young. I was gonna say because I'm young, and I know that sometimes I come across like really fun and bubbly, which I am, but I'm also smart and a business boss girly. And I have had in the past where people take me for granted on how I am so nice, I think.
100%. People can see it as like
smart,
a weakness, which are all those things. But no, I know exactly what you mean. It's like the second you like laugh in a meeting, they're like, oh, you're a child. It's like, no.
Yeah. So I think I overcompensated with that, with being really structured and rigid and not very flexible, and also super, super highly professional in the beginning. And now I don't know if it's experience or whether I have just a great circle around me, but I'm so much more honest. And like I had someone reach out to me the other day to be a client, and I said, look, I actually work really closely with a really small amount of clients, so I would like to meet up with you first for coffee to see what your expectations are and whether I can deliver on that, because I'm not really bending over backwards anymore.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's such a powerful way to do it, because it is. It's like you're literally, as a freelancer, you only have like what, eight client spaces? What is it called? Yeah.
Only slots, 8 slots.
8 slots, or 8 or 10. So it is really important to have clients that you do align with, because I do notice that with like new people coming into this space, they're just desperate for a client. So like anyone who will say yes, they grab, and it's like, you are filling spaces that could be for people that you're actually aligned with, that you actually want to see grow, that you enjoy hanging out with. Like you said, you have wines with them. And I think that a lot of that, you know, in terms of where it comes from, I do think it's definitely experience. It's also having a good base of clients. It makes you less desperate, and people can sense that. And just feeling more confident. And it immediately makes me think of when I was starting out, especially with the agency, if people would come to me and they were like, I want to have 10,000 followers in like 6 months or 3 months or whatever. Initially, I would try and be like, oh, okay, like we can try and do that. Like growth is a little bit, and I would dance around these ridiculous requests. Whereas like, as I got in a few months, I would just be like, that's actually unrealistic for this, and this. That's not our goal. That's not even what we're focusing on. You've told me these are your objectives. That's what we're focusing on. And I think people immediately respect you so much more, because it is their business. It is super important to them. They're not hiring you to dance around the facts and to like be fun and bubbly. They are hiring you because this is an important investment for them. So
absolutely,
I think that's amazing. So now going from that sort of space, you are, mostly at capacity, especially for your base clients and thriving. What are some of the things that you set up in your business to help you grow from that sort of, like messy initial establishing yourself phase? What are the things that you put in place to really help you, grow and feel organized and be sitting where you are now?
Yeah, well, the biggest one, Google Calendar. 100%. Hey, like time blocking is just essential. And like even, at one point I got ridiculous with the time blocking. Like it was very, very structured. But I think for me, it's just a visual representation of being able to fit everything in 1 week, And so that is what works for me. But then even on top of that, it's like just breaking things down a little bit further, like daily to-do lists and just making sure you're across everything. I mean, I've used Asana and things like that for my freelance clients, but it just doesn't work. It's just me. I love Asana for a team thing, but if I've got already my Google Calendar and my list, I'm like,
especially when you've got ongoing clients. I feel like once you've gotten to know your clients and you really get familiar with it, I think when you're onboarding a few new clients or you have new people, sometimes it's harder, and project management systems can be amazing. Like I still use my project management system all the time. Yeah. But I do think once you've got an established base, it is a little bit less needed.
Yeah. And I think because of how I'm working with just, long-term clients, I don't find Asana that helpful for me, but I love it for other things so much.
See, I always use it as like my calendar and my written to-do list are like my sort of daily check-ins, and my project management system is my I won't touch it until it's checked off that list. So I if I'm feeling messy or I'm feeling hazy on a day, I know I can go there and there's nothing that's going to be missed. I can be like, okay, I know exactly where every client is at. And I love that you mentioned the calendar, because I fully remember that as one of the first things we did when I was coaching you.
Literally. I was not using it before I met Bronte. Well, I mean, before we did coaching, and I don't know how. I literally don't know how. At the moment, every day I wake up, look at my calendar. Oh, what's on today? And I think it's a great way also to track my capacity. For me, I mean, next week for me is a quiet week. So I'm reaching out to all my friends who wants to go for a coffee, let's book dinner, blah, blah, blah. I'm that's my weeks where I get to do a bit more of that. Whereas this week I'm no, sorry, I'm not, no one can talk to me.
And it's you can confidently do that because you look at it, you've got everything set up in the right way that you're I know every single client deliverable. Yep. If I wanted to use next week to get really ahead, I could. And if I want to just have a chill week, I can also do that.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah.
So to wrap us up, what would you say to a social media manager who is, let's just say, trying to get into the industry at the moment? Maybe they're about to quit a job, or they've just kind of started dabbling and getting their brand and everything set up. What do you think is some of the biggest lessons that you learned from your super early days?
I would say having that, I mean, basically everything I learned with you in coaching, I think.
Stop it.
I mean, I hate to bring it up, but honestly, the only thing I knew how to do when I went freelance is to do my job. All the business structure and everything like that, I had no idea. I mean, even down to reaching out to an accountant and a lawyer to do my contracts and all of that stuff, and everything I learnt in your course, 100% so valuable, because I just had no idea. But also going to networking events. I hate to say it because I don't like networking events.
But there's a game changer as well, 100%.
Absolutely. That is really having those structures set up from working with you, and then knowing the right people to help me set up my actual business structure, all the boring stuff, and then going to networking events. All three of those things together is definitely why I have the business that I have today.
I love that. I think that's amazing. I think it is a really good point that it's having the social media skill set is super, super important. But it is, when you are running a business for yourself, it's not just about posting on a client account and coming up with content ideas. You are actually running and building an entire business. So you've got to have structures behind that as well.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a great point.
Yeah. And I fully agree with that. And then to the networking events thing, if you're thinking oh my God, I'm never going to do that. I mean, Georgia, who owns this podcast studio, she runs a weekly walk, talk, work event with Tara, who's one of my clients. And that was one of the very first things I went to before I was a freelancer. And I think hanging out with girls who are as ambitious as you, who are working for themselves just like you want to be, that was so powerful for me. And even to this day, like I've met other girls who are social media and marketing managers in there, and it's no competition.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I also love about your Facebook group is like there's absolutely no competition. It's just community over everything, and that helps so much.
Well, when you think of like the hundreds of thousands of businesses just in this local area, and you think of each social media manager can only have like 8 clients. It's like, why would there be competition? Like, we're fine.
God. literally like drive down any road on the Sunshine Coast and there's like 15 businesses and you're like, you all need help.
Totally. No, and I love that. I think that's a really good point about connecting with other people who are doing, building businesses the same way you are. I think it's so, so valuable to be able to like rely on them for input and confidence and ask them questions. And I definitely have had some of the worst weeks of my life in business and rocked up to one of those events not wanting to be there and been able to say to someone, oh my gosh, I just feel so terrible this week. And then being like, oh my gosh, tell me about it. Like they're relating, they're giving you advice, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's actually not like an issue that I'm just having. This is just an issue that people in these roles face. Like, so I think that is incredible. Connection is a really, really good point to kind of end this episode on.
Oh.
I want to say thank you so much for coming on. That was amazing. I think everyone who listens to this is going to get so much value out of your story.
I hope so.
What is your Insta so they can give you a little follow?
Oh, my Insta is Lillie Isabella Studio. Lots of L's. Like someone reminded me of that the other day. They were like, wow, you have lots of L's in your name. And I'm like, I know. I've grown up that way, doll.
It's not my fault.
Yeah. So Lillie Isabella Studio. Don't expect any posts on there.
You can give her a follow, shoot her a DM.
Totally. And just, please message me.
Amazing. And if you do have any feedback for me on today's episode, you can get me at Dash Academy with a _. Thank you so much for tuning in for episode 2. I'm going to be back in a couple of weeks with episode 3, which is focusing on starting out as a social media manager. And I'm going to focus on some of the lessons that I learned in my early days of starting my own brand and business.